a page. Therefore, there's a large overlap in terms of how things work, which for the user means less time wasted trying to figure things out and more time spent writing great material for the web. You can create a new post several different ways, both from within the WordPress backend and also from the WordPress.com toolbar. If we go here to the top, under My Account, you'll see there's this button called New Quick Press Post. And if you click on it, you get to this page within WordPress.com that's called Quick Press. From here you can write a basic post with a title, some content, and tags, and then assign it to the blog you want to assign it to. This is of course assuming you have several blogs assigned to your account. I never use this function, and it's quite simple. It's because there's a lot of functionality missing here. You don't have categories, you can't really do anything about when it's posted and how it appears. You'll also find Quick Press under My Blog and Dashboard on the dashboard itself, right here on top. But again, I never use this function. Instead, you should use either this New Post button up at the top, or under My Blog, select New Post, or you can go to Posts on the sidebar and select Add New. All of these will take you to the Add New Post page within the WordPress admin panel, and this is where you create your post. Like it says, enter title here. This is where you would enter the title of the new post. And once you do and click somewhere else, WordPress will generate a URL for this post right off the bat. You can edit that URL if you want to by clicking Edit and change the last part. But you'll notice that WordPress assigns this based on the date it was published. So 2010-09-28, which is today's date. In general, the title will be the same thing as your URL. Directly below, you have the area in which you type out your post. This area works like a standard word processor. So you type things out, you can make things bold and italicized, and a lot of other things. We'll get back to that later in this chapter. Once you're done writing your post, you want to either publish it or save it as a draft. This is done in the Publish panel up here in the corner. As you can see, you have the option of saving as a draft, previewing, or publishing it directly, or you can also move it to trash. The good thing about all of these functions is that whatever you do, you can always change it. So even if you move it to trash, you can retrieve it later. Or if you save it as a draft, you can publish it later. You can also schedule it if you want to, but all of this will be covered later in the chapter. For now, let's save it as a draft, and then click Preview. Now you'll see what this post looks like on the website, even though it's not actually live on the website. That way you can type out a post, add pictures or video or whatever you want, and make sure it appears the way you want it to before it actually appears for other people to see. If we go back into the admin panel, as we saw in an earlier video, you can reorganize this whole panel and only display the items you want. We can go to Screen Options and turn things on and off. For instance, if I don't want post tags as an option, I can simply turn it off. Same thing with categories, although I wouldn't recommend it. And I can also reorganize the panels themselves. So if we scroll down here and I say, I want the excerpt to appear before the discussion item, I can simply grab excerpt and move it up. This will now be saved by WordPress, so the next time I come into a post edit panel, this new organization will be how I see it. This makes it much easier for me to work with the posts, and it kind of customizes it for the way I used to work with it. In addition to this WYSIWYG editor, or what you see is what you get editor, in which you'll see the text and images sort of the way they will appear on the web, you also have this other tab called HTML, where you will see the HTML version of this content. That means the code-only version of the content. The best way to see how that works is to attach some styling to some of our content. So I'll go back to Visual, highlight the word Content, and click on the bold button. This makes the text bold in the WYSIWYG editor, and when I go to HTML, you'll see it's wrapped in this strong and end strong tag that contains it. The HTML function is a more advanced function, but at the same time it gives you way more control when you want to edit things. And it's a good way of learning how HTML works, so that as you use WordPress, you'll become more proficient at web design and web code as well. Finally, you can resize the edit window if you want to. If you go to Visual and scroll down, you'll see there are these scragglies on the bottom of the corner here. you can grab that and resize the window to the size you want. However, you can only do this in Visual. If you go to HTML, you'll see that those scragglies disappear, so you can't resize it here. That means if you want to resize it, you have to always go to Visual. If you sit in HTML and try to do it, it just won't work. You'll drive yourself crazy. I have. Knowing how to quickly start a new post for your site is going to save you a lot of time and effort. One of the key components of running a successful website these days is to keep it fresh and current, and WordPress makes every effort to make that happen for you. Add to that, you can even customize the post interface to make it easier for you to use. It all adds up to you being able to produce and publish great web content faster. To make your text content as legible and approachable as possible, it's important to lay it out properly. This means applying proper text formatting to your content. To make this as easy as possible, WordPress comes with a ton of tools built for this precise purpose. In fact, working with text in WordPress is not all that dissimilar from working with text in a word processing application. That said, all text formatting should be done within WordPress. To work with text formatting, we first need some text. If you don't have any text to work with already, there's a dummy text document in the exercise files, or you can use a random word generator to create some dummy text. Many people like to use lorem ipsum to do this, but I find that Latin text looks and behaves quite different from English, so I use English dummy text instead. To start off, let's make a new post. I'll click on the new post button up here in the corner. You could also go to post and click add new if you want to. I'll give the post title, and then I'll paste in the text. Here I'll go to my exercise files, click dummy text, copy the two first paragraphs, Control C, go back to my browser, and paste it in. Now here's an important thing. If you copy and paste text directly from a word processor, you carry with it a bunch of style code you don't need. So what you need to do is paste in just the text as pure text. This is done by a function that you can't see right now because it's hidden. There's a very important button on the button row here within the edit area. It's called the kitchen sink, and you find it right here at the far right. You click on that and you open a whole new row of buttons that you need to use. The good thing is, once you've clicked the kitchen sink button once and you make changes and close this window, the kitchen sink will always appear, but if it doesn't, remember that you can always click on it to reactivate it. In the kitchen sink, we have these two paste functions here. There's paste as plain text, signified by a clipboard with a T, and then paste from Word. Never ever use paste from Word. Always use paste from plain text, simply because Word, depending on the version you're using, carries with it different formatting information, and sometimes the paste from Word function won't take out all that information. Paste as plain text will remove everything every time. You click on the button, it opens a new window, and here you can paste in your text. Control V as it says right here. Control V is the universal shortcut for paste. Once I paste it in the text, I simply click insert, and the text is inserted into my area. Now I can start working with it. Like I said, working with text in WordPress is not all that dissimilar from working with text in a word processing application. As you can see, you'll recognize most of these buttons already. For instance, we have the standard bold, italicized, and underlined buttons, and also the very popular strike through button that's used by a lot of bloggers. These all work the way you would expect. You simply highlight a word and click a button, and then it changes. Likewise, we have the bullet lists and the ordered lists. They work the same way as well. Simply create a new paragraph, click bullet list, and start typing. And the same thing goes for the ordered list. And we have this other function that's often used on the web called block quote. A block quote signifies a bulk of text that's supposed to be a long quote and is separated out from the rest of the text. The way you apply it is simply by selecting some text and clicking on it, and you see this block quote is now separated out. The best way to see how this looks in reality is by saving this as a draft and clicking preview. Now when we scroll down, you'll see the block quote it's kind of indented and italicized to make it look different from the rest of the text. Next to the block quote, we have the alignment functions. The alignment functions are the standard align left, align center, and align right, but they don't always work. This depends on whether or not your theme supports it. The 2010 theme supports it, other themes might not. You also have this justify or align full function down here on the kitchen sink, and again, it may or may not work depending on your theme. More importantly, right here, you have this button called Insert More Tag. This is a feature that you often see in blogs specifically, where on the front page of the blog, you'll have a little excerpt of a story, and then underneath, there's a button that says read more or continue reading. This is how you insert it. You simply place your cursor where you want that break to appear, and you click the Insert More Tag button. When you click it, you add this line that says more on it. This is not what it'll appear like, but it indicates inside the visual editor what you just did. If we now publish this story, I'll click publish here. WordPress will immediately tell me that some of my English is not all that great. I'll just click OK and click publish again because I'm not changing it. And I can now go to my main blog and see on the front page, we only have the first paragraph followed by this link, continue reading. When I click on that link, WordPress jumps me directly to where that link was placed and shows me the remainder of the text. That way I can post a huge article with tons of pictures or whatever I want that only displays as a little piece of the article on the front page. Next to the more tag, we have the proofreading button. As you can see, the proofreading is American and really doesn't like how I spell color, because I spell it like a Canadian would. And next to that, we have the full screen button, which just toggles full screen on and off. And then, of course, the kitchen sink button. Now, I said the kitchen sink button is the most important button in this area. The reason for that is, without the kitchen sink button, you would never get to the other most important button in this area, which is this one, the drop-down that gives you style control. This is important because, with this drop-down, you can create headings and subheadings within your story to separate it. For instance, if we wanted to make a subheading directly after our block quote, we'd simply place our cursor at the next paragraph, hit enter to create a new line, then type in the subheading, and use this drop-down to assign it heading 2. The reason why this is important is because when search engines go through your content, they'll look for headings and hierarchies and see everything that says heading 1 is more important than everything that says heading 2. But all the heading tags will be indexed before the text. So if you want to convey a certain message, for instance, ask a question in heading 1 and then answer it with a heading 2, search indexes will find those two and index them properly so that when people search for a question or an answer, they'll find those quicker. The kitchen sink also has the function for selecting text color. I'm just going to say never use it. If you want to change text color within a document, you should really create a custom style for it, and this is quite advanced, and you don't really need it. Then we have these paste functions that we already covered, and the remove formatting button. Now for the remove formatting button, I would suggest you use the styling buttons themselves. The remove formatting button, the idea is you take away the tag that was attached to it to make it do something specific. For instance, you could take away the block quote tag here. But a better idea is to simply click on the element, and then you'll see what kind of formatting is applied. For instance, in this case, the block quote. And to remove it, you simply unclick the block quote. The same goes for the bold up here. If we highlight it, you'll see that it has the bold applied. And if we unclick it, it disappears again. Next to that, we have the character map. You simply click it, and then you can add custom characters, like the Norwegian letter A. And you see it appear right here. And then we have the regular indentation buttons. You can click on an item and indent it, move it back, do whatever you want. And the undo and redo buttons. And of course, help. When you're done doing all your formatting, you should always preview your changes. Click Preview Changes. And if you're satisfied with what you see, go back to WordPress and click either Publish or Update. Once you know the text formatting functions in WordPress, they're not all that different from the ones found in a word processing application. Formatting your text properly makes it easier to read and more approachable for people visiting your site. It also makes your content easier to find and index for search engines. And like always, nothing is ever final in WordPress, so you can always go back and change things around later.